Take a closer look at Namibia. Do you notice anything weird? This 300-mile strip of land sticking out like a sore thumb. It's called the Caprivi Strip, and the story behind it is the biggest geographical prank in history. Back in 1890, European empires were carving up Africa like a cake. Namibia was controlled by the Germans, and they also owned modern-day Tanzania, but getting from one colony to the other was a massive nightmare, and the Germans had a brilliant idea. What if we could just reach the Zambezi River? We could sail straight across the continent to the other side. Bingo! But there was a problem. The British controlled that land. So the German Chancellor Leo van Caprivi offered the Brits a deal. Germany would trade the beautiful island of Zanzibar for this tiny strip of land leading to the river. The Brits agreed. They shook hands, but when the Germans raised their sails, they were hit with the biggest geographical fail of all time. Victoria Fall. The largest waterfall in the world completely blocked the river. The sticky British definitely knew about the waterfall and just forgot to tell them. Guys, that was just number 5 in our incredible ranking of the world's most bizarre borders, but it only gets crazier from here. Did you know there's a piece of land on our planet that belongs to nobody? It's a massive chunk of desert, sitting between Egypt and Sudan called Bir Tawil. But how did this happen? Well, if you look at African borders, you will notice they're often divided by perfectly straight lines. That's thanks to continent's colonial history. Both Sudan and Egypt were once British colonies, so the Brits didn't really care where they drew the border. It was all theirs anyway. So they split the countries along the 22nd parallel. But then they realized they kind of screwed up, because looking at local tribes, it made way more sense to put Bir Tawil with Egypt and give Sudan control over the fertile Halaib Triangle. So that's what they did, but here is the twist. When Egypt and Sudan gained independence, both countries wanted the Halaib Triangle because it had good land and access to the Red Sea. But to claim the Halaib Triangle, each country had to give up Bir Tawil because they can't claim both triangles under the chosen border. So Egypt claims it based on 1899 line, while Sudan uses the 1902 line. And that's how this territory remains unclaimed. So Bir Tawil is basically that weird aunt from Ohio at Thanksgiving. Nobody wants to invite her, but someone has to sit next to her. But let's take a break from the borders that divide territories and talk about the borders that divide our perception of reality itself. One of the coolest places on Earth sits between Russia and America, right here between the Diomede Islands. But what's so special about this border? It's the international date line, meaning if you cross this line, you can literally jump into yesterday or tomorrow. But here is the wild part. When the US bought Alaska in 1867, needed to mark the border somehow. So they just drew a line down the middle of the water between these islands. The result? Time difference between them is a full 21 hours. Why 21? Because each country synced its island to its mainland time zone. Russia uses UTC plus 12, and the US assigned its island to Alaska time, which is UTC minus 9. Of course, we get it. Time zones are an arbitrary division, and for convenience, small countries try to stick to one time zone. So in reality, time zone lines are super crooked, especially the date line, because it's one thing to have a 1 hour difference, but a whole day, that's wild. So it looks like this, and only matches the 180th meridian in tiny segments. By the way, for convenience, people bend time all the time. That's why there are even weird time zones like plus 530 and plus 545 in Nepal. But considering that by their calendar, it's currently the year 2083, whatever, no big deal. Fun fact, in winter, ocean between the US and Russia freezes completely, and you'd think you could just walk across the ice and end up in tomorrow. But it's not that simple. During the Cold War, this gap was called the ice curtain. Back then, the Soviet Union forcibly relocated local residents to the mainland. So today, if you cross the border into tomorrow, the only ones waiting for you are Russian border guys and polar bears. So geographically, America is living in tomorrow and Russia is still stuck in yesterday. Although, if you look at their politics, it feels like Russia is stuck somewhere in the 15th century. By the way, you can subscribe so I don't abandon this channel and keep dropping some awesome videos every week. Or hey, just drop a supportive comment. And without further delay, I'm symbolically splitting second place between two very special borders. Did you know there are countries inside countries, inside countries, inside other countries in the world? This geographic absurdity is called second and third order enclaves and exclaves. I'm pretty sure everyone knows about Vatican City, the most famous state completely surrounded by another state, Italy. But until 2015, absolute chaos was happening on the border between India and Bangladesh. First off, they had 198 enclaves there. That's 106 chunks of Indian land completely surrounded by Bangladesh, and 92 Bangladeshi chunks surrounded by India. I mean, what? According to local legends, centuries ago, local Maharajas played chess and cards, betting entire villages. And when officials try to draw proper borders after independence, they just throw this chaos in place. Picture this. There was such a unique piece of land that Indian territory was inside Bangladeshi territory, which was inside Indian territory, which was inside Bangladesh. In a result, about 50,000 people ended up trapped in geographic nightmare without water, electricity, or proper documents. And just to go to the hospital or school, they had to cross an international border 4 times. Eventually, in 2015, both countries just signed a deal and swapped territories, because figuring it out without a bottle of valerian was impossible. So the world lost a couple of unique enclaves. Kinda sad, actually. Crossing 4 borders just to buy some bread sounds like a nightmare, or as Americans call it, flying through Atlanta airport. Except in India, you deal with actual cobras instead of Karens. Did you know there is a city in the world where you could go to sleep with your loved one in the same bed, but technically be in different countries? Meet Baarle, a town that belongs to both Belgium and the Netherlands. And it's not just a straight line splitting a strait in half. It's 22 Belgian chunks scattered across Dutch territory with 7 Dutch micro chunks inside those. Again, how did this happen? The whole mess dates back to the 20th century, when local feudal lords literally gambled, traded, and sold patches of land to each other. And when Belgium and the Netherlands tried to draw a proper border, their brains just melted, and they left everything as is. 16 kilometers of border marked with white crosses painted right on the pavement, which is running through people's living rooms, restaurants, and supermarkets. They even cook border pizza here, half with Dutch cheese and half with Belgian salami. And of course, locals immediately turned this geographical chaos into the perfect scheme. One local bank was built right on the borderline, and when a Dutch tax inspector shows up, they just slide all the documents over to the part of the office that's in Belgium. And the alcohol situation is pure comedy. In the Netherlands, you can buy alcohol at 18, but in Belgium, beer and wine are legal at 16. So Dutch teenagers just walk across the white crosses into a cafe and casually order a beer. And since Dutch police have no jurisdiction on Belgian pavement, they just stand a meter away and helplessly watch through the line on the floor. And how they pay taxes and fix pipes here, that's a whole other story, though Europeans handle it peacefully. So yeah, if you get caught, you can literally tell your wife, honey, I didn't cheat on you. It was just an international business trip. And about the teenagers, but a life hack just to slide your bar stool 3 feet to the left, get absolutely trashed and cheap beer in Belgium, and then legally puke back into the Netherlands. Well done! We've reached the finale of our episode. For first place, I picked an absolutely mind-blowing border that nature itself drew for us. Did you know there's an invisible biological border on Earth that most animals haven't been able to cross for millions of years? Imagine this. You're in Indonesia. On one island, monkeys are trying to snatch your girlfriend's brand new iPhone. On the other island, people are getting eaten by giant tigers. Fantastic. But when you sail just 35 kilometers to the next island, things get even more exciting, because none of those animals are there. Instead, marsupials and weird birds of paradise show up. And even the fish and plankton are divided. This invisible barrier is called the Wallace Line, and it runs right between the Indonesian islands of Bali and Lombok. But why can't animals just swim across this narrow strait? The thing is, during the Ice Age, ocean levels were way lower. Asia and Australia formed 2 massive continental shelves where animals could just aimlessly wander around. So basically the Ice Age version of a shopping mall. But right between these islands, the ocean was so deep that even during the Ice Age, a super wide strip of water remained. Add in insane currents that speed up to 30 kilometers per hour and evil sharks, and you've got a completely impassable wall. And you might ask, what's wrong with birds? Oh, I'll tell you what's wrong with birds. They're assholes that are always in the way. But biologically speaking, most of them evolved in the ways that made them uncomfortable living in other ecosystems. So they just stay on their islands and don't even try to migrate. This story proves that it's not just humans. Evolution can be lazy ass too. So the Wallace Line is like finding the perfect match in Tinder, but they're living in New Jersey. And you're just like, you know what? We'll just evolve separately. I'm not crossing that bridge, babe. Okay, this was TWOMAZA. Bye.